Distinguished guests, esteemed global fellows, ladies and gentlemen, announcing the arrival of a guest of honor, Yang Bahagia Datuk Technologist Mustafa Sagmud, Deputy Minister of Higher Education, and Yang Bahagia Datuk Professor Dr. Azlinda Azman, Director General of Higher Education.
Pengajian berkualiti, sistem pembelajaran terkini. Oh
distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Yang Bahagia, Datuk Teknologis Mustafa Sagmud, Deputy Minister of Higher Education. Yang Bahagia, Datuk Profesor Dr. Azlinda Azman, Director General of Higher Education. Yang Bahagia, Profesor Dr. Ahmad Izani Awang, President, Vice Chancellor, Open University Malaysia. Yang Bahagia, Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Awang, Chairman, Board of Governors, Open University Malaysia. Respected members of the Board of Governors and top management of Open University Malaysia, our renowned OUM Global Fellows, distinguished guests, esteemed leaders, educators, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, a very good morning. Welcome to Open University Malaysia's Public Lecture Event 2025, Visionary Leadership, Charting the Futures of Digital Education. As we celebrate OUM's 25th anniversary, today's event reaffirms our commitment to human-centered digital learning, where technology empowers but never replaces the human connection at education's core.
We're here to take this journey together, finding out how visionary leadership can turn challenges into opportunities and help redefine learning for the future. To begin this event, we now invite Mr. Noor Bakri for the Doa recitation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and very good morning. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ya Allah, Ya Mannan, Ya Hanan, on this blessed morning, in conjunction with the Open University Malaysia 25th year public lecture series, we beseech Thee and grateful towards You, in favor of all infinite blessings to us, Your humble servant, to live, work, and study in a safe and prosperous life. We seek Your blessings for a flawless progress of this event. Ya Allah, Ya Muqallib al-Qulub, tighten our bonding, tolerance, and integrity, unite us with love and kindness, strengthen us with full determination to overcome obstacles and challenges with open hearts and appreciation for one another. We seek Your guidance to steer clear from any events that would be detrimental to the progress of our years of hard work and success. O Allah, bless our honorable guests, speakers, attendees, and community leaders. Grant them wisdom, strength, and barakah in all their efforts. And reward them abundantly for their contributions on our gathering, on our shared purpose. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك عنبنا وإليك المصير. اللهم طول أعمارنا والصحي أجسادنا وثبت إيماننا ووسع أرزاقنا وحسن أخلاقنا ونور قلوبنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's our honor to invite our esteemed President, Vice Chancellor, Yang Bahagia Professor Dr. Ahmad Izani Awang, to give his welcoming address.
Time ni tinggi, so every time nak kena ucap after dia kena adjust mic. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berhormat Datuk Mustafa bin Sagmud, Deputy Minister of Higher Education. Yang bahagia Datuk Profesor Dr. Azlinda Azman, Director General, Ministry of Higher Education. Yang bahagia Profesor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Muhammad Awang, Chairman, OUM Board of Governors, members and representatives of Meteor Board of Directors and OUM Board of Governors, OUM Global Fellows, dignitaries, government representatives, industry experts, scholars and education stakeholders, Meteor and OUM management and staff, guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Salam Malaysia Madani. Welcome to Open University Malaysia's public lecture series on visionary leadership, charting the futures of digital education. First of all, I would like to give thanks to the Almighty for blessing us with the opportunity to get together this morning. I would also like to take a moment to especially thank Yang Berhormat Dato' Deputy Minister for taking time off your busy schedule to officiate this event this morning. Your show of support, along with that of the Ministry of Higher Education, is something OUM deeply appreciates. Thank you, Yang Berhormat Dato'. This one-day event has been organized in conjunction with OUM's 25th anniversary, which we will mark this 10 August. Some of you may not know this about OUM, but we are Malaysia's first full-fledged open and distance learning institution, having opened our doors a quarter of a century ago. Today, a quarter of a century later, we have cumulatively enrolled more than 250,000 learners. We held our most recent convocation last May and have produced more than 120,000 graduates. Many of our learners are working adults, including teachers, nurses, industry practitioners, and entrepreneurs. Uniquely, within our learning community, we also have prisoners, members of the armed forces, retirees, orang asli, and those living in remote areas. By studying at OUM, each one has embodied our motto of University for All. The spirit of recognizing, appreciating, and elevating human potential across all spectra of life is one we have carried since our inception and serves as the inspiration behind the theme of our 25th anniversary, Humanizing Digital Education. Our efforts to provide educational access to everyone who wants to learn are backed by the integration of digital technology with sound pedagogy to create engaging learning content, facilitate productive collaborative interactions, and enhance teaching and learning outcomes. Importantly, this approach is also meant to lower barriers, an endeavor that OUM will continue to champion for the next 25 years and beyond, inshallah. Ladies and gentlemen, today's public lecture series is truly special. Thanks to the effort of the Center for Digital Education Futures of OUM, we have with us 5 internationally renowned experts in education, in open distance and digital education. They have been appointed as OUM Global Fellows and are members of the OUM International Advisory Board. Emeritus Professor Prinsloo from South Africa, Emeritus Professor Xiao from China, Professor Melinda from the Philippines, Professor Olaf Zawacki Richter from Germany, and Professor In Sang Jung from South Korea. Thank you for making the long journeys from your respective home countries to share your knowledge with us here in Kuala Lumpur. I know it's not easy to bring them all to get together at one time from 6 different parts of the world. The lectures they will deliver today will attempt to answer crucial questions surrounding the future of digital education, such as, number 1, what does educational leadership mean in the digital age, and what forms might it need to take? Second, who should lead, and how might leadership be distributed, reimagined, and exercised differently in order to shape the future we want? And the third one, can digital education in both present and future forms disrupt inequality rather than entrench it? And under what conditions might that be possible? So these are questions that should not only concern ministries, policymakers, schools, universities, and educators. They should also concern all of us. And it is for this reason that I am so glad to see faces from such diverse background in the audience today. Your interest in this matter does not go unappreciated, and your voice will be key in shaping a more just and human-centered educational future. Ladies and gentlemen, I speak for the entire OUM community when I say thank you for joining us today. Although only a compact one-day program, I hope you will find this a thought-provoking and worthwhile event. I hope what you hear today will also inspire you to make decisions in your own personal lives and vocations that will continue to emphasize the human even as the world moves at warp speed towards everything digital. Therefore, allow me to say once again that we are truly grateful for your presence and the support it represents to OUM. I look forward to many more opportunities for all of us to question and reflect, to engage and share, and to learn and contribute in the future. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Professor President.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now it is our pleasure to present to you an introduction to OUM.
Welcome to Open University Malaysia, where flexibility, innovation, and excellence in higher education come to life. Our story began in August 1999 when the Ministry of Education invited Multimedia Technology Enhancement Operation Sendirian Berhad, Meteor, a consortium of the first 11 public universities in Malaysia, to set up an open university. This led to the establishment of OUM in August 2000, followed by our launch on August 26, 2002 by the Prime Minister. Our workforce comprises over 700 full-time staff, including more than 100 academics and a support team of over 600 administrative personnel. We currently offer more than 50 programs, ranging from diploma to PhD. We value your experience through accreditation of prior experiential learning, APEL. We collaborate with a range of professional bodies. We are affiliated with leading international organizations such as the OU5 Research Network, connecting 5 Asian open universities. Most of our students, about 95%, are working adults. So far, we've helped over 250,000 people learn with us, and more than 100,000 have earned degrees. Our learning centers are conveniently located nationwide. In every state, at our learning centers, you can access a variety of student support services. We have expanded our reach across Asia, Africa, and Europe through global partnerships. At OUM, we encourage our academics in research and development activities. We have established 4 key research alliances. We also offer professional training, development courses, and mobility programs for international students. We are more than a place for learning. We are also a place for creating a better society. We have been honored with numerous awards for our commitment to academic excellence and innovative distance learning. Opening minds, transforming lives.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we are truly privileged to welcome our guest of honor, Yang Bahagia Datuk Technologist Mustafa Sagmud, Deputy Minister of Higher Education, to deliver a speech and to officially launch this public lecture event.
Yang berhormat.
Thank you, MCs. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Salatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Malaysia Madani and a very good morning to all of you. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Ahmad Izzani Awang, President and Vice Chancellor of Open University Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Datuk Profesor Dr. Azlinda Azman, Director General of Higher Education. Yang berbahagia Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Awang, Chairman of the OUM Board of Governors. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all our great panelists. I think thanks for coming and share your thought today. I would like to begin, first of all, I would like to convey the regards from the minister who are unable to come this morning due to unforeseen circumstances. So he asked me to deliver his speech. So please bear with me. I might be shorter than him, but I'm more handsome. Don't tell Minister that, especially from Dr. Azlinda. I would like to begin by congratulating Open University Malaysia on your 25th anniversary. Happy anniversary. Your legacy shows a strong commitment to national service through education. As Malaysia's first open and distant learning institution, OUM took early steps when many were still cautious. You recognized the opportunity, made bold decisions, and stayed the course. I remember in the earlier years of your formation, everybody is mocking. They say this is they call it University PJJ. Some says it's pensyarah jarang jumpa, pelajar jarang jumpa. Those days. So I think it's a great achievement after 25 years. This public lecture comes at a meaningful time. As we mark OUM's journey, we also turn our focus to the road ahead. The theme, Visionary Leadership, Charting the Futures of Digital Education, invite us to consider how we lead through change and how we make firm decisions about where we are going. The future depends on what we build today. Education is where this work begins. Through education, we shape how people face change, solve problems, and carry forward what matters to society. Visionary leadership in education demands clarity and conviction. It requires direction that builds trust. It calls for a steady hand that develops character and good sense in those we teach. These qualities do not emerge by chance. They must be cultivated over time. The Ministry of Higher Education is serious about preparing the years to come. The Malaysia Higher Education Blueprint 2025-2035, in the next 10 years, sets a strong path for the next decade. It gives focus to digital transformation, talent development, institutional strength, and international collaboration. Each area responds to what our education system needs in order to grow and stay relevant. Digitalization plays a central role in this effort. We are improving how AI is taught and used across our universities. We are also building campus environments that support flexible learning. This includes better internet access, modern learning spaces, and stronger support for academic staff. These efforts help us build a system that can stay steady in times of change. At the same time, we must shape how students think. AI must be approached with care. A future-ready education teaches students to pause, to assess outcomes, and to think about how technology affects others. This is how we train for sound decision-making. Vision calls for readiness. We need an education system that learns from experience and holds steady under pressure. This depends on policies and just as much on the daily decisions made by educators, administrators, and students. OUM has long shown what this looks like. You understand early that learning must meet people where they are. You extended education to working adults, to those living far from cities, and to those who needed flexibility. You made digital learning work while holding firm to high standards. You showed that access and trust can go hand in hand. Looking ahead, we must ask harder questions. What kind of learner will thrive in the next 10 years? What kind of teachers will guide them well? What kind of institution will be trusted to stay focused and fair? These are questions that will shape how digital education grows. The future will not wait. It is already taking shape around us. We must be ready to respond. We need systems that can adapt, include, and deepen learning. These qualities will matter more than ever. This lecture series shows that the same strength of thought. It brings people together to face challenges directly and speak from experience. It reminds us that education carries more than content. It carries the weight of what we hope to achieve as a society. As we move forward, we carry this responsibility together. A digital future needs steady minds and dependable leadership. Our education system must be prepared people to act with fairness, to stay thoughtful in complexity, and to lead wherever they are called to serve. It is in that spirit that I have the honor to officiate the opening of the OUM Public Lecture Series titled Visionary Leadership, Charting the Futures of Digital Education. With that, I thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For 25 years, Open University Malaysia has not only pioneered access to learning, but has placed people, our learners, at the heart of digital education. As we mark this meaningful milestone, we invite you to celebrate a journey shaped by the power of human connection in a digital world. Today, we gather not only to celebrate, but to imagine new possibilities together. In this shared space, where ideas cross borders, we begin a conversation that bridges education, technology, and humanity. In a world increasingly shaped by technology and artificial intelligence, we pause to ask, how can digital education remain deeply human, relevant to all learners, wherever they are, whenever they need it? This is why we are here today, to engage in open dialogue, not just to speak, but to listen, to question, to reflect, to reimagine the futures of education, to share our visions, to spark bold ideas, and above all, to reaffirm hope that digital futures can still be human futures. To each of you, welcome to Open University Malaysia. Let us begin.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Dato', for the speech and also to launch the public lecture event.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now invite our esteemed Chairman of the Board of Governors, Yang Bahagia Emeritus Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Awang, accompanied by our President and Vice Chancellor, Yang Bahagia Professor Dr. Ahmad Izani Awang, to the stage to present tokens of appreciation to our guest of honor. We invite Yang Berhormat Datuk Technologist Mustafa Sagmud, Deputy Minister of Higher Education, and Yang Bahagia Datuk Professor Dr. Azlinda Azman, Director General of Higher Education. Thank you. We request everyone to remain on stage. Okay. Next, we kindly invite our members of the Board of Governors, members of the Executive Management Committee, and our honored guests, the Global Fellows, to join Honorable Deputy Minister, Chairman, and President on stage for a group photograph. Farewell. To the Honorable Deputy Minister and all our esteemed guests, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, the Honorable Deputy Minister will take his leave. Please join me in expressing our deepest appreciation with a round of applause as we bid him farewell. Terima kasih.
Kadin tak ada.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we now begin our first lecture of the day. To introduce our distinguished speaker, we invite Dr. David Lim, Director of OUM's Center for Digital Education Futures.
It is my honor to introduce our first speaker, OUM Global Fellow, Paul Prinsloo, who is Emeritus Professor at the University of South Africa. Professor Prinsloo is a globally renowned academic known for his intellectual labor. His scholarship is a steady compass in a world captivated by technology, always pointing us back to the human heart of education. His work spans artificial intelligence in education, student success, learning analytics, and the ethics of student data use. A common thread that runs through all of his research is what kind of future do we want for ourselves and for our learners? Professor Prinsloo took an unconventional path, moving from theology and philosophy into digital education. This journey gives his work a depth and originality shaped by perspectives beyond conventional academic routes. Only recently, he was awarded the title Professor Extraordinaire by the University of South Africa in recognition of his standing contribution and leadership in digital education. He continues to challenge assumptions and reframe how we see education. In today's lecture, Professor Prinsloo will explore how open distance and digital learning can reclaim its humanitarian ethos. He will ask what this means in an age of AI and algorithmic systems. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Paul Prinsloo to deliver his public lecture titled Rediscovering the Human in Algorithmic-Informed Open Distance and Digital Learning.
Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Good morning to everyone. Honorable Vice President and Vice Chancellor, Chairman of the OUM Board of Direct Governors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you some reflections, provocations, but also some guiding pointers that may inform our thinking and our leadership about rediscovering the human in algorithmic informed open distance and digital learning. It's a huge honor to be with you. Just some acknowledgements before I start. I don't own the copyright of any of the images I used in this presentation, and this presentation is licensed under International Attribution 4.0 license. None of the ideation and text in this presentation has been generated by using a large language model. For example, ChatGPT is proudly human, and this presentation is not about AI, but about being human in an age of AI. This presentation was written by a human. The slides were produced by a human, and therefore the slides may possibly contain non-perfect English, grammar, and some idiosyncratic phrases, so forgive me in advance. Just a brief overview. I want to situate our thinking about being human in an algorithmic age against the background of living in a digitally saturated world. Reflect on how our lives are already personalized and how it changes being human. Explore the deployment of AI in digital education, provide some pointers for consideration and some concluding remarks. So we live in a world saturated with digital technologies, digital relationships, hundreds or thousands of digital friends and or followers. Our digital technologies and networks have become like the air we breathe. We are constantly and automatically reminded when someone has liked our post or sent us a message. Most of us are never offline. Whether we travel, whether we have supper with friends and family, our phones are constantly beeping, constantly reminding us that someone who we may have never met or we may never meet has liked a message or a post. And when we don't hear our phones beeping, we check our phones, scared that we may have missed the beep, scared that we are not seen, scared that we are not missed, scared that we are alone. We are constantly, almost compulsively documenting our lives. We are no longer taking the time to marvel at the sunset or at the forest, waterfalls, amazing architecture and art, but we are frantically taking pictures of ourselves, faking yet another smile for another selfie that we will share on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and whatever social media we have on our phone, and then we wait for the first like. And as we wait in anticipation for the next like from anyone, we realize that our lives may have become empty, devoid of meaning outside of the last picture we took and shared, and we may not remember where we took it, but we will know that we are in the picture. That's why we took it. And we will be in the picture smiling, jumping like a monkey with arms outstretched, as if it was our last performance on earth, the last evidence that we have been here. That picture may have had 1,000 likes, and yet we may feel empty like the screen. We may miss being human. So when we talk about rediscovering the human in open, distance, and digital learning, we need to deeply reflect on what is left of being human in this post-digital world. In most of the news and research on AI in education, there's an emphasis on how AI will make us learn faster, how AI will create personalized and automated learning experiences where we don't need human teachers, we don't need education, we only need AI. And in this presentation, I want us to slow down. I want us to take a deep breath and ask ourselves some uncomfortable questions such as, what may we lose when we learn faster? And under what circumstances may personalization help our students to learn deeper, but not necessarily faster? Let us look at personalization, how algorithmic decision-making processes already impact on our human being human, our relationship with one another and the world around us. So personalization and recommender systems analyze your behavior and based on what you did and said in the past, what you liked and who you interacted with. These systems then create profiles of you and create an alert system automatically, which will feed you with what you may like in the future based on your past behavior. And increasingly, we may not see the full list of movies, but only a reduced list based on our past behaviors. Now you know why after you watch free cute kitten or dog reels on Instagram, the next time you log onto Instagram, you are swamped with feeds of cute kittens and dogs. You liked it? Here's some more. Your present is shaped by your digital past. But there's more. Your past will shape your future. So we are automatically categorized into types of consumers based on our past behaviors, combined with people with whom we share certain behaviors. Amazon, after I looked for a book, gives me this message. Customers who viewed items in your browsing history also viewed. Not only am I categorized based on my past behavior, but also categorized with other people who share some of my characteristics, like my browsing history, my shopping, my gender, my ideological orientation, or my hobbies. And whatever we see in our digital worlds we inhabit are determined by algorithms that shape our lives more than we suspect. And this is personalization at work. So the advertisements you see on Facebook are not coincidence, but the end result of what you shared and liked on Facebook, and also what the people you interact with on Facebook liked and shared. You also do not see all the posts of your friends, the thousands that you have, and they don't see all your posts. X, formerly known as Twitter and LinkedIn, also works like this. So the algorithm determines what will make you engage more frequently, and then it spoon feeds you with their choice. There are many implications of how AI-driven personalization plays out in our lives. I will only focus on two because it has implications for AI in education. The first implication is that we start to live in a filter bubble, not engaging with the non-digital world anymore, but only with a digitally, commercially driven agenda of what they think we should see. And I think visionary leadership must take into account the world we live in. And while it seems convenient and makes life seemingly easier, it is immensely dangerous. We are living in filter bubbles, locked in our past decisions and forced a future we increasingly have little choice over. He or she who controls the algorithm controls the future. So we should be very careful to who we gave that control. The second implication is that we all start to live in our own bubbles, nice and comfortable, consumed by our own lives and number of likes and whatever the machine decides we must see and buy and share on social media, looking for more likes, isolated from one another. And our individual bubbles are increasingly defined by the commercial and ideological interests of those who design and deploy the tools we use. Colleagues and friends, and humanity is so much more than individuals living in bubbles with their own comfortable recommender systems. The earliest human communities believed that I'm human because you make me human. I become human in my relationship with you. You being human is not a finished project, it's a process. So in Zulu, in my home in South Africa, when I greet you, I say, Sawubona, I see you. And when I greet you with Sawubona, it means I recognize you as human and you recognize me as human, and because you recognize me, I become human. And we are human together. So who needs a human when you can learn with an AI agent that not only understands you or claims to understand you, but knows what you want, when you want it, what types of questions you prefer or struggle with, and that can provide you with instant feedback and support 24/7. So just take a look back to say distance education and open distance and digital learning have always been known for the distance between the student who wants to pursue her goals and the institution who helps her to achieve these goals. So it was always an issue, how do we bridge the gap between students and lecturers, and it has always been the integral mission in distance education to use a range of technologies to make learning at a distance possible. For anyone older than or younger than a certain age, the image on the left is a letter. And then that's a book, if you remember that. And many of you will not remember the audio cassette, and there was at one stage in human evolution, there was radios, and then laptops that becomes more recognizable, and then a mobile phone, and then something. So distance education always used a range of technologies to bridge that gap. So as technologies advanced and the internet became available to more and more students, institutions needed systems to help bridge that gap. We needed a place to store our materials. We needed a place where we could have communication with our students in one place. And so the learning management system was born. So developing learning management systems from scratch was intensive, really resource intensive and skills intensive. And many institutions did not have the infrastructure or the capacity to create these learning management systems. So we enter into contracts with big commercial providers to give us spaces to teach. We no longer own our digital infrastructures, but we rent spaces from commercial entities. And what does that mean? And how does that shape education? They choose how we teach. They decide how our students learn, what they find where, how we communicate with our students, and what teaching and learning looks like. So what are in the terms and conditions with our providers of the learning management system? That's a leadership issue. How do we negotiate? What do they get out of the deal? And increasingly, they share our student data with Facebook and TikTok and Silicon Valley and governments. So now we are faced with a new development. AI comes into the classroom and it raises some fundamental questions about how we teach and learn. And now we have this. We share spaces. Actually, we have been taken over. We have been recolonized. Audrey Waters wrote in a blog, AI Slop, on 9 May, she said, AI companies want us to become utterly dependent upon them, not just for academic inquiry and scholarly output, but for every possible communicative utterance, every major and minor life decision, for all facets of companionship, including spiritual guidance. She says, it's not simply a matter of automating formal teaching and learning, as if that's not bad enough, she says. It's about undermining knowing, undermining caring, undermining democracy. That is their business. So ChatGPT was a homework cheating tool. Now OpenAI is carving out a more official role in education. It was invited to the table. It took the main chair on the table. So ChatGPT is integrated into Canvas, the learning management system, and will assist in creating assignments, assessing students, and managing administrative tasks. And that was a bit more than a week ago. With all this happening, so how do we understand it? And I think it's important that we understand that AI is not this one thing. So please bear with me. So when we talk about AI in education, what do we talk about? So it's possibly helpful to think of traditional or rule-based AI, where an algorithm is trained on a selected training database, identify cats, and we teach the algorithm to identify anything that doesn't look like a cat is not a cat. And sometimes they get it wrong. So the algorithm is trained to do specific tasks like playing chess, or in the context of education, to identify students who are at risk. So we, based on the research, hopefully, we tell the algorithm, if a student hasn't logged on for a week, there's a risk. And if the student is a second language English speaker, and if the school marks in English was very low, risk. So we train the algorithm, and then the algorithm identifies students that are at risk, and then we have the responsibility to respond. Then we have generative AI, or ChatGPT is the most known, or Gemini, or Copilot, or the other colonizers. Algorithms learn to identify patterns first on a training data set, and then apply what they have learned on new data sets independently, ever expanding their ability to identify patterns in new ways. So ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot is. Now increasingly we have multi-agent systems consisting of a main algorithm that analyzes a specific task. It's like a personal assistant, it's like a second in command, and it breaks the task down into different tasks and then delegates these tasks to different algorithms, who then does the work and then reports back to this main algorithm who gives you the report. And then, so if you want to choose a school for your child, you give this multi-agent the task to say, I want the best school based on price, location, affordability, culture, religion, whatever. And it designs its own system, and then an hour later you have your answer. And as we think about these things, it's important to recognize that the ethical concerns and the risk becomes more from rule-based, where they cannot deviate from the rule, and depends on whether the rule is fair and equitable and transparent and accountable. But when we move to generative AI, it becomes scary. I shared the example with Nur Bakri this morning, when a year ago when I asked ChatGPT, does Palestine have a right to exist? ChatGPT said, it depends. It's a very difficult question. There are different opinions about this. When I asked, does Israel have a right to exist? It says, of course. That's a year ago. I haven't tried it recently. But the risk of ChatGPT is 60% of the time correct. And we invited it to teach. It's like giving your child to a tutor that is 60% of the time she's correct or he's correct. So what is happening? How does it change our worlds? What are our choices? What does leadership look like? To invite something that is 60% of the time correct into the classroom. We also need to consider 6 levels of automation, and I think that's why it's so important when we talk about AI in education. What are we talking about, not only with the 3 different subsets of AI, but also how independent do they function? So we have where the teacher controls the scenario, to where the AI assists the teacher. I have 14,000 students in Economics 1 at UNISA. I do not know, it's humanly not possible to identify which students haven't logged on for a week. But AI can help me with that. And then I get a list of 5,000 students that haven't logged on. What do I do with 5,000 students? So then I use another AI to say, send an email to those 5,000 to check, are you okay? Is there something we can help with? If you're not okay, please do ABC. So that's where AI assists the teacher. That's where the AI controls specific tasks and the teacher monitors the AI. To where the teacher, the human, monitors incidentally but controls any time, while AI controls a broader set of tasks. To high automation and to full automation. And what do we choose, under what conditions do we choose what? And that's leadership. That's to say that in certain circumstances we should not automate that, but in other circumstances we can automate. We need help with 14,000 students. And that's a very strategic position. So we have to think which of our administrative processes, our student services, our frontline staff, what can be automated and what should not be automated? Can we automate frequently asked questions with a chatbot? Can we remove the secretary and put an algorithm there? So what happens to administrative processes? And what happens to the humans that used to fulfill those roles? Curriculum development and instructional design. Can I ask ChatGPT to develop my course materials in Economics 101? I mean, there's so much you can say about supply and demand on first level. So what can we automate and what shouldn't we? Formative and summative assessment, and I'm coming back to that later, that's our Achilles heel. So in what circumstances can we use these AIs for formative assessment and then summative assessment? Student support. Can we use a chatbot for emotional support? What are the dangers? Can we use a chatbot for cognitive support? For answering if I upload my course materials in Economics 101 and the generative AI agent cannot move outside those boundaries, can I employ the frequently asked questions and the student can search the content and what are the potential? Can we use AI for technical and administrative support? How does ChatGPT and all this family of technologies impact on research, the processes, the dissemination, the validation? Interesting, this was always an issue in distance education, where we had cost, quality, access, and the more students you allow into the system, your economies of scale allow you to provide it at a cheaper cost. But what about quality? So it was always this triangle, what do we choose? So if I allow 14,000 students into the system, but I'm worried about quality, and I appoint 700 tutors to help me with ensuring the quality and providing personalized feedback to our students, what happens to cost? And my question is, how will AI in this family of AI change the iron triangle? And I think that's very interesting. What's happening with institutional reputation? If your degree cannot be trusted because you cannot verify that it was a student who did the work in the summative exam, you have no reputation left. There will not be another 25 years of the Open University of Malaysia. Any institution. And that's where the chickens come home. So let us consider this, and this makes me excited, but this makes me scared. If you think of the whole learning journey, from pre-enrollment to inquiries to registration, when can we use rule-based AI? When can we use generative AI? When should we not touch AI? And so that's the question. And that opens up possibilities for really, really deep thinking. Some pointers for consideration, and I'm running over time and I haven't heard the bell yet. Quick. So ChatGPT will redefine human knowledge, accelerate changes in the fabric of our reality, and reorganize politics and society. This was said in 2023. In 2025, we see it happening. And for me, this is a very scary image where the SIM card of your phone is changed, where the SIM card of our operating system is changed. Everyone is cheating their way through college. It's not just the students, and I think that's very important. Multiple AI platforms now offer tools to leave generated feedback on students' essays, which raises a possibility that AIs are now evaluating AI-generated papers, reducing the entire academic exercise to a conversation between two robots, or maybe even just one. For the people at the back of the audience, I'm sorry that the text may be small, but the number one is the teacher creates an assignment using AI, the student writes assignment using Gen AI, then the teacher uses Gen AI to write feedback. This is followed by the student writing an email requesting a remark using Gen AI. The teacher responds to the email using Gen AI, and then we're back at the next semester. And it's the AI wheel of death. How do we and our students learn to work with AI? In all its forms, scrutinizing, checking, and validating knowledge claims. What is the potential to tell our students there are some circumstances where we don't want you to use, and there's some circumstances that you can use full AI? And what are the assessment scale? How do we use AI in all its forms to make students feel valued and, strangely enough, human? How do we work with AI in open distance and digital learning for a more just and sustainable future? How do we create, choose, and use AI with our students to be open for the potential, but also to be critically aware of the risks? How can we use AI to remove the bubble and to open up the future of human choice? The question remains, what does it mean to be human in an age where many of our decisions have been shaped by algorithms over which we don't have any control? How do we discover being human in algorithmic-informed digital learning? That is our choice. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Professor Paul Prinsloo. For those of us who've read his work, his research, and to those of us who've had the privilege to converse with him, we would understand where Paul Prinsloo is coming from. And I'm sure from his lively delivery and the many profound questions that have been thrown up, the audience would have many questions in the mind, still trying to figure out what to ask, how to understand, and how to grapple with AI. So if we could have maybe a couple of questions from the floor, if you could stick up your hand and I will call you, and then if you could let us know your name and affiliation, then pose your question directly. Thank you.
You also have a choice to ask ChatGPT.
Do we have any questions? Yes. Could you introduce yourself? Where's the microphone, yeah? I can introduce you. I'm using this. If you could let us know your name and affiliation.
My name is, I'm Dr. Jamila Jaafar from Aminuddin Baki Institute, Ministry of Education, Malaysia. We teach school leaders. Our institute focus only on school leadership. So I came to this place with a question. Now I have more questions. So, what I can say that, Prof, we are from old generation. I'm going to retire next year, which is 60 years. So we shared the same ideas, like the way you present the AI and everything. We feel scared. What will happen to the future? So now you give more questions than answers. I'm worried. So how can we balance between the two? AI, non-AI, human, robot? What should we do? What is there? What is our hope? Because I can see, for example, in school now, AI and internet spoil many of our children. So what is your experience in South Africa that we can learn from? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Over to Paul Prinsloo.
Awesome question. Just two short things. There's amazing potential in using AI in big data analysis. We can discover new forms of cancer. We can match some medications that we have for cancer treatment. There's so much potential. So I don't want you just to be scared, but I want you to be scared. So that's one thing. So there's huge potential, and we need to know under what circumstances is this an amazing tool. We need to know that. The other thing is, I think, in the past, we were focusing on the answer, if students got the answer right. Now we must focus on the process. How did you get to the answer? Tell me. And I think that's, for distance education, the challenge. How do we scale that? I can do that with 20 students to say, share with me the prompt that you wrote for Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT. Share that. Give me the answer ChatGPT wrote. Give me the example of the next prompt you wrote. One prompt is not enough, sorry. Give me the example of how you further engage this engine. Give me the response. Show me how you verified the information. Where was it right? Where was it wrong? Give me the references to Google Scholar on whatever level you are teaching. And then write a summary of what was your assessment, what's the final answer. So for me, I will mark the process and not the answer. And I think that's scalable with 20 students. How I do that with 14,000 Economics 1 students, I don't know. So for me, the challenge is how do we evaluate the process of learning at scale in distance education?
Right, thank you very much for the question and the response. Can we have another question from the gentleman at the back? Sorry. Gentleman at the back, yes?
Morning, Professor. My name is Hazidi. I'm from the Open University Faculty of Education. My question is concerning the AI and other technology tools. Why are we questioning the use of AI? Perhaps I wonder if it's not the AI that we should question, but it's the people. Like, for example, in linguistics, I teach phonetics and phonology, and I keep telling my students that how we learned it during my undergraduate years. So what with AI and other technology tools, my students can now do in one day what took me months to do during my time. So if they use it properly, so what is the question now here is their judgment of what the results come at the end. So we are actually, they're becoming a different kind of linguist than what I was when I came out of university.
So, sorry, what's the question again? Can we get straight to it?
The question is, should we not wonder what we will become, judge the future, the people that we are building, rather than the AI itself?
I completely agree, but if we see being human as a process, it's a very interesting of what type of human do we foresee in 20 years' time with these technologies? Will it be a fairer world? Will it be a more just world? Will it be a more sustainable world? And coming back to the first question, that's also scary. Someone said yesterday, as long as humanity controls the technology, and then I think of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So technology can be used for evil, as we see in our present day, or it can be used for the betterment. So, but I agree with you. What type of humanity do we see, and will the Open University of Malaysia contribute to? Will we be fairer? Is our choice? Will we be more just, more sustainable? We have choices. Let's be human.
Thank you very much. One final question from two questions. Can we have Dr. Sharifah first? Yes?
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. I'm Dr. Munira Alatas from the Allianz Center for Governance at UM. I enjoyed your use of recolonized. In the way I understood it is, we have recolonized how we teach, we have recolonized the classroom. And it's, in my thinking, that's not a very good thing. And here's why. You did not actually mention, and I hope you will give a comment, about the whole issue of marketization of higher education and how it is in line with the new economic world order of exploitation, of dehumanization, which is equated with colonialism. So please comment on that. Thank you.
Excellent question. So what choices do I have in the colony? What forms of resistance is possible? I do, from a personal position, I do totally agree with you that we've been taken over by a capitalist, carceral, parasitic driven system. That OpenAI and Gemini and that whole family does not necessarily have the good of humanity at its heart. But now we are here, so what forms of resistance are possible? And I shared with Prof. Melinda yesterday, during apartheid South Africa, and I was white, I still am. So I do not speak easily about that time, but the majority of the population in South Africa had to find ways to live under apartheid. And they were ingenious. They found their ways through laws. They found their ways into transport. They were excluded and they find ways. And I think that's for me the challenge. And so thank you for the question. So I must, as an educator, as a researcher, I must find ways to talk back to the system. And Gayatri Spivak, the big decolonial scholar and feminist scholar from India, she uses the word affirmative sabotage. And don't ask ChatGPT, because ChatGPT lies about affirmative sabotage. I tried, because I wanted to see how she uses it. But we must find ways as educators how to bring the human back and to provide our students with a critical sense of what is happening on Google. Just shortly, in the past, Google was never neutral. So we always had a number of links after we included the search term. So the colonization started a long time ago. So we always had links, but I had the responsibility to click on the links. And then there came the sponsored links, links that paid an amount to Google to be first in the search term. Now we have the answer, and then the links. And the Pew Research report that was published last week said only 5% of people that put in a search term click on the link. They accept the answer. And that's a space for affirmative sabotage, where we can say, tell to students, don't accept that answer from no one, not from me. Interrogate deeper. So, sorry, it's a part of a longer conversation, but thank you for raising that.
Thank you so much. If we can have one last question from Prof. Yes?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. I enjoyed very much your lecture, and I learned a lot. My question is very simple. We are talking about the trust, which is equal to sincerity and honesty. I'm trying to relate this formula with our stakeholders, the students. And your last point on the reputation, institutional reputation, I like it very much, actually. Based on your years of experience, perhaps you can share with us how to handle that, especially in dealing with plagiarism, perhaps, among the students and so on, writing thesis. I think this is something which is very, very common here in Malaysia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I hope I understand your question. So I do think that's where the chickens come home, is in the accreditation and the trust. So when a student takes his or her qualification to an employer or becomes self-employed, they want that certificate to mean something. So when there's a suspicion in the market that your students cheat their way through college, that piece of paper means nothing. So the University of Sydney, you can look on their website, they have a 2-lane system where students are encouraged to use AI during the formative assessment in a very streamlined process of show me your prompt, show me the discussion, show me the process. So it's not a blanket endorsement, it's open for discussion. But they've moved to fully proctored venue-based assessment for the final. And I think that's a challenge at scale. If you have an institution with 300,000 students, and when COVID came, you moved fully online assessment. Now with ChatGPT, what are the implications to go back venue-based exam for the final exam? I don't think we have a choice at this stage. The AI proctoring tools are not successful. And then students are ingenious. And lecturers are ingenious too, by the way. So we will find a way. So I don't think at the moment final examination outside of venue-based will have reputation in the market. I hope I've answered. That's my little contribution.
All right, thank you very much. So to keep to the schedule, we'll have to close this session, and we would like to thank Professor Paul Prinsloo for that inspiring lecture. Thank you so much. I will now hand over the floor to the MCs.
Okay, thank you, Dr. David. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, we now invite everyone to enjoy a brief morning tea break in the foyer. Please return back here roughly around 11:20 a.m. as we prepare to continue the second lecture in today's series. We thank you for your kind attention.
schedule is supposed to be 3 in the afternoon. 3 in the morning, right? So you could have 3 in the afternoon, 2 in the morning, and then roundtable.
So for 12:30 lunch break.
Boleh lah. I think it's a push lah. We have to. Because each lecture is only 1 hour.
Okay lah. Alright.
Ada buka kan terus? Tak kacau kan? Tak kacau kan?
Digital.
Ada. Ijas atas bawah. Atas bawah. Yang ni untuk ke depan. Kau nampak aku struggle tu kau nak ni tadi.
jalan ke belakang. Lepas tu dekat sini kan. Boleh tarik tak?
Dia ni bang.
Ni kita buat ke? Ni kita ke apa? Kita. Sebab dia tadi pun ada ni. Sebab tadi tak apalah untuk dia orang ni kan. So dia minta yang ni pindah belah sini. Lepas tu yang program ni pindah ke tengah sikit. Baru dia nampak audience kan. Yes. Boleh.
2, 1.
lecture, just invite announcement, please ensure to our external. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly take your seats. We'll begin with the second lecture shortly.
Memang bunyi ni lah, alarm so masuk. Okay. Oh.
All right. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Before we continue with the second lecture, for our external guests, please ensure that you have received the event lanyard and tag distributed by our secretariat. These tags will serve as your identification and also access pass for the luncheon that will follow later at CENDEF restaurant. We kindly ask that you keep the tags with you at all times. Thank you for your attention, and we appreciate your cooperation. Now, to begin with the second lecture, to introduce our distinguished speaker, we invite Dr. David Lim, Director, OEM Center for Digital Education Futures.
Thank you. I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, OUM Global Fellow, Junhong Xiao, who is an emeritus professor at the Open University of Shantou and visiting professor at the Open University of Guangdong. Professor Xiao is known for his sharp and unflinching critique of open distance and digital education. He began his career in linguistics before turning to open distance and digital education, bringing with him an uncommon depth and analytical rigor. His work asks tough but vital questions. Does digitalization necessarily advance equity? Does it safeguard professionalism? Does it keep the human heart of education intact? And does it serve the common good necessarily, or simply commercial and political interests? Professor Xiao's critiques cut through the easy rhetoric that often surrounds digital education. He takes his aim at techno-determinism, market pressures, and superficial notions of openness. He urges us to think hard and look deeper. In today's lecture, titled Humanizing Digital Education or Digitalizing Human Education, that is the question, Professor Xiao calls on us to reclaim the human mission of education in an era of technological enchantment. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Emeritus Professor Junhong Xiao.
Good morning, Honorable President of OUM, dear OUM colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor and privilege to give a talk on digital education. My topic for today's talk is Humanizing Digital Education or Digitalizing Human Education. That is the question. I'm going to focus on problematizing 5 commonly taken for granted issues of digital education and how educational leadership may play a critical role in shaping the futures of education. First, let's see what is education, or what is education for? Because I believe the answer to this question should be both the starting point and the end point for any debate about the future of education. And education is a transformative journey that eventually defines who we are. This is because education not only teaches knowledge and skills, but also opens doors to opportunities, transforms minds, and transforms lives, and also empowers minds. All right? In other words, education is about human beings, not technology, no matter how intelligent technology has become. Technology should not or cannot learn on behalf of students. Technology cannot or should not teach in place of teachers. Of course, technology has a role to play in education. That's for sure, right? No one can deny its role in education. So, education is basically a human-to-human enterprise. And as such, it is a basic human right. It is a basic human right. And equitable access to education is not a privilege, granted by the state to any particular persons. Right? It is a right, a human right. The state had the obligation to ensure equitable access to education for all. All right? So my point, I would like to reiterate my point. Education is a human-to-human enterprise, and this should be both the starting point and the end point for any debates about the futures of education. And now let's have a very brief look at the role of technology in education from a historical perspective. A very brief look at this role. Right? No doubt, technology is essential to the development of education. Before printing and papermaking were invented, well, education was limited to a very tiny minority of highly advantaged classes. Okay? Access to education was a privilege, not a right. Printing and papermaking revolutionized the paradigm of education, while subsequent technologies have made education more and more accessible, efficient, effective, and interesting. Okay? However, technology was never intended to replace human educators until after the invention of the teaching machine in the 1920s. Okay? This ambition to automate education has reached its peak today. Looking back, technology which have been effectively integrated into education are those that we use to enhance educational practices. That is, we use this technology as productivity tools. These uses are sustaining innovations rather than disruptive transformations. Right? When it comes to educational technology, disruptive intentions often end up in sustaining realities. That is why, although 100 years has passed, technology-mediated education remains humanized today. All right. So this was the first teaching machine invented by Professor Sidney Prinsloo from the Ohio State University, a professor of psychology in 1928. Okay, after a brief look at the role of education of technology in education from a historical perspective, let's go on to problematize the digitalization of education. The use of digital technology in education is not always for the common good. In fact, not always for the good, not to mention the common good. Right? Although its affordances for education are mostly assumptions rather than evidence-supported conclusions, they are often taken for granted, taken to be true. In fact, digital technology does not always live up to its promises. Okay? So today, I highlight 5 issues that, in my humble opinion, merit the attention of educational leadership. Right. The first issue is about the agenda, the static agenda and the hidden or real agenda behind the digitalization process. The intelligence of digital technology, although artificial, seems to be a good reason that educators can and should be replaced by machines. Furthermore, with the widespread permission of neoliberal values in education, the digitalization of education has become a national strategy in many countries around the world. It is believed to be an optimal means to achieve equity in education and produce the workforce needed in the digital age. All right, this is the static agenda. However, the hidden agenda is to maximize profits for the edtech sector, and in some countries, to compensate for the reduction of government's expenditure on education. While digital education may be conducive to cultivating the workforce for a digital society, the mainstream discourse often downplays the ways in which it tends to reinforce inequalities rather than promote equity in education. On the other hand, it is highly controversial whether cultivating a digital literate workforce is what education should be mainly about. This is highly, controversial. So be aware of the hidden agenda behind this process. The second issue is the deprofessionalization of education. In the eyes of staunch advocates for digital education, or in particular, the edtech enterprises, the ultimate goal is to replace human educators with digital technology. So should this happen, education will no longer require professional educators' expertise. And education will eventually be dehumanized. Right? As we know, the outcome of education is determined by the interplay between multiple factors, including cultural, psychological, physical, environmental, developmental, and sociological factors. So this complexity and multidimensionality of education is way beyond the capacity of any cutting-edge technologies to deal with. And it would be unthinkable what education would be like if it were completely, totally digitalized and hence deprofessionalized. So be aware of the risk of deprofessionalizing education. And the third issue is diminishing the centrality of humanity to education. Each and every educational activity is social and relational in nature. Education is socio-culturally contextualized, while the automation or digitalization of education tends to be decontextualized, hence asocial and solitary. It is simply unimaginable, what we would turn into if we were taught to be human by machines rather than by other humans. Well, I think that's also Paul's concern. All right? Lacking in human passion, empathy, warmth, care, and judgment, education will do more harm than good to humanity in the long term, even if the consequences are not immediate. Okay? So, in my humble opinion, a key theme that characterizes the digitalization of education should be the humanization of education. And I'm glad that this is what OUM has been doing in the past 25 years. All right? And next, exacerbating existing inequalities. Digital education is not a free meal for individual students, an issue which is of practical relevance but is often evaded. Well, in 2023, I conducted a literature review of over 3,000 studies on technology application in learning and teaching. Well, only about 9% of these studies took costs by the student into account in their research designs. Right? Furthermore, none of them took costs into account. All right? But none of them examined the costs that students had to bear. That is, whether the technology used were accessible, affordable to students in actual life. Okay. Digital technology is expensive, even if educational institutions can afford all the recurring and non-recurring costs. Those who stand to benefit from digital education may not be those who suffer most from inequality in education. Now, this is a universal phenomenon. Now, even in the most wealthy country in the United States, in 2024, according to the official statistics, there were 20 million US households having difficulty gaining access to reliable broadband, high-speed broadband. So it's universal. Given that financial constraint is a major barrier to equitable access to education, it is a curious paradox that digital technology can bridge the gap in education between the rich and the poor. Unless digital education is affordable for all socio-economic classes in a society, it will restrict rather than widen access to education. If we blindly scale up digitalization, we start considering the specific socio-economic and socio-cultural conditions we are situated in. Okay? So be aware that digitalization may actually exacerbate rather than eliminate existing inequality in education. Okay? And finally, the last issue is about ethical risk and harms. No technology is ideologically neutral, even from the initial stage of research and development. Educational technology is shaped by the value propositions of its designers and its target customers, either intentionally or unintentionally. In the age when education is increasingly commercialized and commodified, ethical risks and harms are more the results of deliberate design than unintended consequences. Well, a case in point is the bias algorithms that favor some so-called typical groups. We definitely disfavor other so-called atypical groups. For example, ethical risks and harms of the life are not uncommon today. For example, students of color are more likely to be threatened by online proctoring software because the software uses data sets in which white faces are overrepresented, all right, leading to problems in how accurately the software can identify people of various sex, age, and racial backgrounds. Okay? Values in favor of commercializing education through digitalization will impact on the fundamental mission of education, on what it means to teach and to learn, and inevitably on what humanity is like. So history tells us that digital technology often results in broad consequences that stretch beyond methods of learning. All right? From the socio-cultural perspective, values embedded in these technologies tend to come from the global north. So this kind of digitalization characterizes the emergence of digital colonialism and renders socio-cultural diversity at stake. As we all know, socio-cultural diversity is a defining feature of human civilization. Okay? So these are 5 issues that, in my opinion, matter to education at the macro and meso level. How we deal with them may directly shape the futures of education. Unfortunately, they are often taken for granted. They are not very often questioned, critiqued, or criticized. Okay? So after problematizing digital education, let's go on to see the role of educational leadership. The landscape of digital education is messy and requires charting. And now is the time for educational leadership to play a critical role in making sure that digital education continues to be humanized. All right. Now, first, be professional. Educational leaders are duty-bound to safeguard the fundamental mission of education. And we all know not all educational problems have a technological fix. So remember, the use of technology in education is always a Faustian bargain. It is a trade-off. It is a trade-off, okay, that has hidden costs or negative consequences. Of course, this doesn't mean that we should resist new technology in education. Instead, what we should do is to make sure technology is used in ways that can liberate the mind rather than mold the mind according to a prefabricated model. Right? For example, if generative AI is used to promote critical thinking and self-regulation, it is conducive to liberating the student's mind. However, if it is used mainly for knowledge delivery, to knowledge transmission, all right, the student's mind will be molded on existing knowledge. It will not be liberated. Okay? So first, be professional. Second, be critical. Digital technology is often portrayed as an objective force for good. Well, do not buy into this discourse. Educational leaders may buy into this discourse, especially when they have to cater for the bigger political agenda. Therefore, it requires resilience, courage, and wisdom to avoid getting caught up in the syndrome of fear of missing out and stay committed to professionalism. Only in this way can we effectively take advantage of technological innovations to transform education for the better. All right, be critical. And next, be technologically pessimistic. Educational leaders should learn to question new technologies, instead of embracing them blindly. Maintaining a pessimistic stance, especially when they are surrounded by magical thinking. Pessimism, in this context, doesn't mean passively accepting things as they are, but actively exploring possible better ways in which digital technology may help solve educational problems effectively. Only when we are not content with things as they are, we will start looking for other possibilities. On the other hand, with a pessimistic approach, we will be more realistic about the contributions of digital technology to education. I think this mindset is particularly essential when digital technology is hyped as a silver bullet for education. So don't be over-optimistic, even if a certain kind of technology is really useful to education. And next, be pragmatic. The digitalization of education is a means, not an end. Right? The more cutting edge is not necessarily the better. What really matters is its fitness for pedagogical purposes. Instead of wholesale adoption, it is more reasonable to identify which aspects or activities of education can benefit from which digital technology, both in terms of quality enhancement and equity promotion. What works with one technology in one context may not work equally well with another technology or in another context. So, being pragmatic means taking up a contextualized stance when making decisions on the digitalization of education. Be pragmatic. And finally, be proactive. Be proactive. Each wave of technological advancement always leads to a new round of educational reform. This is a reactive mindset. That is, educators take actions to make sure education adapts to new technological innovations. In other words, we reform education to ensure a particular technology will be used, a particular new technology will be used in education. All right? Using technology in education for the sake of technology, not for the sake of education, basically. So, by being proactive, educational leaders do not fit education around technological advancement. Proactive leaders are confident in their ability to foresee and plan around potential challenges. Put specifically, they lay down the fundamental principle for fixing educational problems in the most cost-effective and quality-assured manner. So, my point is, whether a technology should be used depends on whether it can fix specific educational problems in the most cost-effective and quality-assured manner. With this principle in mind, we will be able to resist any hype surrounding technological advancement. So, in my humble opinion, these are some of the most important qualities educational leaders should possess to maintain leadership in the digitalization process. Well, these qualities are best exemplified by the OUM teaching and learning ecosystem. This system actually bears testimony to OUM's foundational philosophy of digital humanism. So I believe only leaders who possess these qualities can conceive and develop such an ecosystem. Finally, I'd like to appeal to fellow educators to break the eschatological spell. Today, educational reform has turned into a race for new technologies. It seems that once the latest technology is integrated into education, all the educational illnesses can be cured. However, the reality tells a different story, right? The latest technology of the day is not the last technology of humankind. There will always be new technology coming out as far as the human being exists, continue to survive. Educational leaders need to break this eschatological spell. Otherwise, they cannot be genuinely proactive. That is, they cannot play an agentive role in fixing educational problems in the most cost-effective and quality-assured manner. Instead, they will only take hasty reactions each time when a new technology is promoted for educational purposes. This is the first point. No technology is superior or inferior to another. The superiority or inferiority of a technology is relative to its fitness for pedagogical purposes. Technology should not be to blame for any malpractice in education. It is people who use it for the wrong purpose or in the wrong way that should be to blame. That should be to blame. If the futures of education are predicated on emerging technologies, humanity will eventually be redefined. So, my question is this what we aspire to? Is this what we hope for? If we want to play a leadership role in charting the futures of education, we should manage to nourish the digitalization process with humanity. That is, to humanize digital education. It is time we rethought why we chose to digitalize education. To this end, there are valuable lessons to be learned from OUM's 25 years experience of humanizing digital education. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Junhong, for your critical perspective on the application of educational technology. It should already be dawning upon the audience today, halfway through the mark, that the kind of discourse that we're trying to incite is not one that is supposed to be singing the song of let us all love AI indiscriminately. I think in the public discourse currently, there is too much of that. Let us all embrace AI and ask no questions. And we are here to say, let us pause for a second. Let us be slower in thinking of how we will be using AI in our daily lives, whether in education or in anything else. And Prof. Junhong, if you've been following his work, he has always been very critical in that sense. There is an urgent need to really pause, to slow down, and to rethink what we're doing with technology. And this dives in very clearly with the first lecture that we had today from Professor Prinsloo, who's also talked about caution, but at the same time, we should not be fearing the new. Yeah, we're not saying that let us jettison technology altogether. We're saying there is plenty that we can absorb and utilize, but at the same time, caution is necessary. So with that note, I would like to open the floor for questions. A few questions before we move on to the third lecture. Do we have any questions? Can we get a question from that side? Please, if you could introduce yourself, your name, your affiliation, and your question directly.
Thank you. My name is Wan Zuhainis Saad from University Putra Malaysia. Thank you, Professor Xiao, for very insightful presentation. I would like to ask, you mentioned being a technological pessimist while also advocating for proactive leadership. How can higher education leaders strike a balance between caution, as you mentioned just now, and innovation when adapting digital tools to ensure that education remains human-centric. Our blueprint of higher education 2025-2035, the first shift is on humanity-centric, entrepreneurial and adaptive learners. That is our goal. And we are talking about to ensure that our education remain human-centered and ethical, and while also ensuring we are not left behind in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Please. Well, first of all, about whether we will be left behind by technology, it depends on what we want our education to be like, okay? But as for the balance between innovation and some kind of slowdown or technological pessimism, okay, I think the most important thing is what we want to use education, technology for when it comes to education. Right. We want to use education in order to improve the quality, okay? In order to what? Enhance the cost effectiveness, make education more cost effective, all right? So that education can reach more people, okay? And we want education to promote equity, so that widen access to people who may not have access to education. So we use technology to do this. With this principle in mind, I think we can balance the optimism and being proactive. Being proactive, that means we have to know what we want education to do to education. And with this in mind, we will judge whether a particular technology is suitable, is fit for our purpose. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question from that side. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Junhong Xiao. I think most of your presentation has answered the first speaker's, Prof. Paul's questions that has left us in the morning. But my question is, how do we define humanizing digital education? Are we talking about the presence of a human teacher in the education, being physical there, or in terms of designing the course? Or are we talking about the emotional intelligence, the empathy, the cognitive intelligence, the decision-making ability of the teacher while they are teaching the students? So which aspect are we looking at when we say humanizing in digital education? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think you've already answered your own question now. The use of digital technology should enable education to embody care, inclusion, and equity. Okay. Otherwise, this is not humanized digital education. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Now, can we have the last question? Yes, Dr. Munira.
Thank you for your presentation. Now, I want to refer to your point about hidden agenda. Mm-hmm. I'm bringing bad news all the time, but the hidden agenda to maximize profits. I agree with you, but I'd like you to make the link. In my opinion, technology has actually enabled an excessive use of the university ranking system. Mm-hmm. Can you bring a link between this hidden agenda and our frenzy with always wanting to be ranked and increase reputation? And China is not unguilty of this. There's the QS rankings, USA News and World Report, Times Higher Education, and ARWU. So I for one am not too fond of ranking because it has generated the quantification of education rather than quality. Thank you.
I think, thank you for your question. Thank you very much for your question. But to be honest, your question is beyond me, okay, because I have never been in a leadership position. But I try to tell you is that it seems like more and more Chinese top universities are withdrawing from this kind of ranking. Yeah, one after another in recent years. They simply don't like that. It seems like there is some kind of manipulation behind this so-called ranking. I'm very sorry, I cannot answer this question.
Thank you very much. I think that should conclude our session for Prof. Junhong's lecture. So can we give him a warm round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. Rest assured, these difficult questions will be addressed at some point in the day, especially in the roundtable when all of us will be sitting together and gathering the threads that we've been talking about and tying them together and see how we can move forward, yeah? All right, so now it's time for me to introduce our third speaker for the day, who is OUM Global Fellow, Melinda de la Peña Bandelaria. She is professor and former chancellor at the University of the Philippines Open University, where she served from 2016 to 2025 as the chancellor. Professor Bandelaria has built a distinguished career in open and distance learning. She served as the president of the Asian Association of Open Universities. She has championed initiatives in massive open online courses, universal design for learning, micro-credentializing, and open educational resources. During the COVID pandemic, her Open Fight initiative helped institutions across the region pivot quickly to remote education. Among other things, her work addresses the future of universities. She emphasizes that higher education must hold fast to its core values: honor, excellence, equity, openness, sustainability, while embracing flexible learning, future-ready curricula, and research that is aligned with social needs. She also urges us to ask, what should the university of the future look like? And how should our conceptions of that future shape the way we lead universities today and prepare them for what lies ahead? In today's lecture, titled Rethinking Institutional Leadership through the lens of the University of the Future, Professor Bandelaria will explore these questions and share how leadership in higher education can navigate disruption while reimagining the mission of universities. Please join me in welcoming Professor Bandelaria de la Peña Bandelaria. As she delivers a public lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, and our esteemed guests, university officials of OUM, and fellow scholars, interrogators, and practitioners of digital education. Good morning to everyone. So yes, as mentioned by David, I'll be talking about rethinking institutional leadership through the lens of the University of the Future, and I hope through this talk, I will be able to contribute something to the theme of this public lecture series and the theme of OUM's 25th anniversary celebration as you chart the next 25 years of the university. So let me start. Okay, so just to put context to my talk this morning, we've often heard of these terms, industrial revolutions, the internet, COVID-19 pandemic, we've been through that, artificial intelligence, the climate change and the clamor to shift the green economy, the geopolitical concerns, all these things. We may overlook some of them, we may not take note of them, but whether we like it or not, we are affected by all these aspects. But let me take you back to the very essence of universities and what roles are we expected to perform as an academic institution. So universities are expected to perform three major roles: education or teaching, knowledge generation through research, and of course, community engagement or making available our expertise to the community or to the public. Doing these functions resulted in various advancements. I mean, for centuries we've been doing this, so it resulted in advancements, it resulted in changes, and it resulted in the way we are, it impacted on the way we are living now and our culture, our everyday life. The resulting social changes are now also creating demands from us, universities, which necessitate a transformative approach on how we're going to lead our universities and at the same time still perform our traditional roles. The COVID-19 pandemic brought us back to these realities. I mean, what are these functions for when we are faced by this kind of disruption? And we are hoping that within our lifetime, there's no such pandemic that will happen again, right? But we also cannot avoid this or cannot overlook the fact that there are still other disruptions into our learning. I mean, the natural calamities, etc. And our experience in the Philippines, rain, floods, volcanic eruption, can really disrupt the learning process. So as a leader of an educational institution, as a leader of the university, the question remains, where shall I take my university such that we will remain relevant, we can sustain our operations, and at the same time, we will be of service to our various learners. So to frame this question, after the pandemic, of course, the term VUCA, we're living in a VUCA world, it's not something new. But after the pandemic, it has reemerged, probably with in a new context, saying that we are now living in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and disruptive world. So how can we lead the university in such a situation and at the same time ensure sustainability? What I will be sharing with you this morning is actually a reflection of the 25 years of university leadership, occupying different positions, and particularly during the last 5 years, where I assumed the leadership position of being a UP-OU Chancellor from 2016 to 2025. That's 9 years of being the university leader. So, why University of the Future? Again, before the COVID-19 pandemic, discussions during academic conferences, forums like this, were centered on industrial revolutions and how we universities can align ourselves with the fast-changing world of work brought about by the fast-changing or fast-modernizing technology, just like how we are discussing things now. AI is definitely changing the world of work. And definitely we are discussing how we can do this, how universities, how our academic institutions can be aligned with all these discussions and integration of artificial intelligence to the world of work. Hence, during that time, we've heard of the terms and concepts like Education 4.0, University 4.0, and even some education ministries move ahead of the IR 4.0, as in the case of Zimbabwe at the time, that was 2019, who declared Education 5.0 to be the key to achieve the goal of their country, to be a middle income status by 2030. The marching order for the universities is for higher education institutions to not only teach, research, and community serve, but to innovate and industrialize the country. At that time also, we at the university, we coined the term Education 5.1. We should be ahead of the industry. Hence, we coined the term 5.1, Education 5.1. Our Commission on Higher Education made the declaration of Education 6.0, or Education with a Conscience, which I think very much relates to our earlier discussion about humanizing education, etc. Turkey also has its own version of Education 5.0, and one university here in Malaysia forwarded its own articulation of Education 5.0. So, while we keep on saying Education 5.0, 5.1, 6.0, until where? Until what number should we proceed? And what or how should we differentiate one from the other? We will always be keeping aligned with industrial revolutions, and we should keep in mind that at the time, while we were discussing Industrial Revolution 4.0 and how we can be aligned with that, discussions about Industrial Revolution 5.0 already started. So at the time, I was thinking, instead of saying Education 5.1, Education 5.0, or 6.0, why not the University of the Future? That term is still anchored on the traditional roles of universities: teaching, research, and public service. And again, the need to always stay relevant is or should be at the top of our mind. In November 2019, I made the first public articulation of the concept of the University of the Future in a national conference organized by the university. We've been discussing about this term for quite some time at the university, but the first public articulation happened in 2019. So what are the attributes of the University of the Future? Again, anchored on our traditional role, it is all about instruction and learning, the first major role. So our first articulation of the University of the Future puts forward concepts like future-proof degree, future-ready leaders, with a critical or ethical and open science perspective. Future-proof degree, we often refer to that as the basic qualifications of training that would facilitate the individuals to undergo career shifts throughout his or her lifetime and would serve its foundation, the foundation of the learner, to undergo lifelong learning. The future-proof education puts premium to tertiary education degrees. We still see tertiary education as necessary to provide the theoretical foundation on basic disciplines, to further the development of industries and technologies for the welfare of the people. Without the theoretical foundation, there's no way we could advance the knowledge. It should be noted that at that time, when we formulated this term, University of the Future, there were already questions about the value of college degrees. It was being questioned because hiring at the time, employment at the time, puts so much premium on the skills being required by the major industries. We also talk about curriculum. The curriculum should also be future-ready or future-proof. The curriculum serves as the platform for students to not just learn the current knowledge and skills, but also to theorize and contribute to the building of knowledge in the discipline that would shape the future of innovations and industries. Since academic disciplines are not stand-alone disciplines, but in real life are intertwined with each other, the convergence or the pluridisciplinarity of the discipline which should be contained in the degree programs that we will offer should be there and should be the feature of the University of the Future. It is not just a multidisciplinary thing, something like if I am an IT expert and I should learn about IT, and I should be learning about other things. When we say pluridisciplinarity, it means to say that as an IT expert, I should also know how the practice of computer science, how being in front of my laptop for the whole time, 24/7, how is it affecting my body, the physiological processes, the biological processes, etc. So I should know all these things and not just be an expert in one field. The future-proof curricula provide for teaching and learning strategy that would integrate the acquisition of future-proof competencies and will enable individuals to respond to the current demands of industry, but at the same time be able to shape the development of technologies that would be useful and would really be impactful to the quality of life of the people. The graduates that we will be producing should be able to have that kind of critical reflection of the volume of information that is already available to us now. It should also be noted that the kind of future of learning that we are looking into is technology enhanced, and that's the reason why we are now talking about AI-enabled learning. And it should enable us, universities, to offer our learning programs in a ubiquitous manner, meaning to say anytime, anywhere, anyone, any device they should be able to access our learning programs. the role of educators, we teachers, will also be changing. We will not be the source of information. Rather, we will be creators of credible information, which will be the content of the courses which we will be teaching. So the role of education, the role of teachers is changing, and in fact, even the role of universities will be changing. Not really to be just the content provider, but more of content developers, getting information from the different sources, and more importantly, assessment of learning and certifying the learning of an individual. So new role of educators, new role of universities. The second attribute is all about the research and knowledge generation. So the research role should be beyond just knowledge generation, but should aim for innovation with societal impact. The University of the Future helps shape the industry through its open science-based knowledge creation and generation function. Open science is not only about sharing the results of research, but covers the whole research cycle, thus fostering, sharing, collaboration among the stakeholders of science and innovation. It is also important to note that open science puts people at the center of innovation, and at present can be concretized by anchoring what we are doing in terms of knowledge generation, in terms of research, to the Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, we still have up to 2030 to really contribute something, but those contributions should also be research-based. We should also be, it should also be noted that by doing this kind of research, we are also contributing to the triple bottom line, which is actually the people, the concern for people, the concern for the planet, and our social profit. Future's research methodology should be at the center of how we will do research. It should continue to mark the pathway and direction of our university, including the focus on the science of learning. We can ask the question, do the classic theories of learning still relevant in a technology-enabled, open, and remote mode of instruction? The answer to this question will guide us teachers in designing the learning that will be relevant to the types of learners that we will be welcoming to our universities 5-10 years from now. This is important given the projection that 90% of higher education students will be studying online and probably in remote mode of instruction. Trend analysis is another research methodology, especially in monitoring and evaluating the technology advancements in the context of education. Educators can also help shape the development and advancements of technologies to make them more appropriate to the profile of the learners of the future. Scenario building with the convergence or in convergence with data science and asking ourselves, how can the data inform us in terms of predicting and projecting the years ahead for education? Cross-impact analysis, or looking at the effect of the convergence of these various dynamics, example, the technology, on people and environment, should be a priority when we do or conduct our research. The third role of which we should be concerned about is our community and societal engagement. We should look at not just community engagement, but in fact, should move it or elevate it to take the form of university social responsibility to address societal and global challenges. These solutions, shall we say, or addressing the social challenges should be research-based and which will also be inputs in producing future-ready leaders. The university's social responsibility can give to the university social profit, which is an outcome of social capital resulting from the university's engagement with society, or what we commonly refer to as public service, and which can be considered as the apex of the operations and the roles and the functions of the university of the future. The people, again, should be at the core or at the center of all these functions and roles that we are performing. There is a recent development wherein the call, I mean, actually it's not that recent, many years have passed, wherein there is this call for countries who are members of UN to really embrace open learning. And therefore, we look at open pedagogy as something that should characterize the university of the future, looking at our learners as co-creators for the advancement of knowledge and as co-creators for the thickening of the academic text. So we are not just teaching them, they are also contributing to the building of knowledge and of, especially in progressing an academic discipline. The fourth attribute, and I think this is something that we discussed since the first lecture, is all about technology and governance. I am of that position that when we talk of technology, it should not just be about teaching, it should not just be about learning, but it should also be about governance. We will be using these technologies not only as tools for teaching and learning, but also as content in our teaching and learning. Yesterday, in some informal discussions with my fellow global experts that we have here, we talk about, okay, so there seems to be nowhere to go, but really consider these technologies as part of our ecosystem. So what will be our role? What will be, nothing can stop that. I mean, the industry says it's there, and therefore we should prepare our students to that eventuality that they will be there and they will be engaged in using this technology. So our role really, we have to take that obligation that we should be teaching them how to use them ethically, how to use these technologies ethically, responsibly, and also tell them about some of the dark sides of it. I mean, there are good sides, of course, but definitely there are also the dark sides of it, and it is our responsibility as academic institutions try to be objective and present to our learners all these sides, the bad sides, the good sides, and the potentials of these technologies, again, with the people at the center of all our initiatives. So again, with all these things in mind, embracing technology for our teaching and learning, for our governance, sustainability should be both part of our concern, a major concern, operational continuity, and should also be our ethical imperative. Now, why we thought of this at UPOU? Throughout the years that I have stayed with UPOU, I was there even before the university was officially established in 1995. We have this mandate to democratize access to higher education, and it is via distance education. So right from the start, it's distance learning that it's our business. And I always look at an open university system as a disruption by itself. Therefore, for every disruptions that we encountered, the internet, online learning, the clamor for open learning, we considered those disruptions as challenges or even as opportunities to make better our operations, to make better our the kind of teaching and learning that we give to our learners. So with the internet, 1995, the internet was also introduced to the Philippines. Through those years, from 1995 to 2001, we studied the possibility of integrating online learning to our education ecosystem until we became fully online in 2007. Open education, MOOCs, was there. I was part of MOOCs in 2008, and I studied how it can be integrated, how it can be anchored into our major roles. And public service was seen as the anchor for massive open online courses. So we offered our own massive open online courses in 2013. And henceforth, we embrace the open education framework, which served us well during the pandemic. And it was also the model that we use in order to help other educational institutions in our country transition to remote instruction. Our articulation for our next 25 years, and that's the reason why I said I can relate to OUM's thinking of what's next for us in the next 25 years. Our articulation, we say, whatever happens, whatever technology will be there, it will always be anchored on our values, honor, excellence, equity, openness, agility, and sustainability. In the context of sustainability, there will also be the people again at the center, the people, the planet, and the social profit. Our leadership strategy is embedded in the future's research, in sustainability frameworks, and being learner-centered in our design and operations. Now, leading to the University of the Future lens, we look at leadership not as a control, but more as a futures-oriented stewardship. We embrace a fluid framework because the dynamics affecting our education ecosystem, they change so fast. Therefore, we have to be adaptive to evolving contexts. We have to be agile in our instructional design, values-based governance. Quality assurance is very important as our internal compass, and external signal, especially to our external stakeholders. We value international partnerships, especially when it comes to mutual recognition and resource sharing. And that's the reason why we are part of these many international organizations. We've been very active partner of OUM for the past more than 10 years, not only as fellow members of the Asian Association of Open Universities, but the OU5, the 5 open universities in Southeast Asia, working together to do research on digital education and other things that really impact on the way we are teaching and providing learning programs to our various types of learners. Now, the question probably is, okay, I have ended my term last February 2025, and the question is, so is the framework, is the University of the Future framework also ended with the end of my term? I am happy to note that, at the time that we were discussing the concept of the University of the Future, I encourage my colleagues at the university, faculty members, researchers, fellow officials, I encourage them to have their own articulation of the University of the Future framework or concept. And we published a book about our articulation of the University of the Future. It is an open access book. You can access it from our repository, that's networks.upou.edu.ph. And I'm also happy to note that the current university leadership that will be for the next 3 years, 2025 to 2028, also embrace the University of the Future paradigm. In her investiture address, the new chancellor, it was just delivered last July 30, 2025, in her investiture address, the new chancellor said, "In these times of uncertainty, complexity, and endless transition," she asked the question, "what does it mean to lead an open university?" She shared her vision of UPOU as a transformative university of the future. So she took on the term University of the Future, built of 4 interrelated components: a learning university, where lifelong learning is embraced as a way of life; a healthy university, where well-being is a shared responsibility; a sustainable and resilient university, where decisions are guided by a future-oriented perspective; and entrepreneurial university, where community members are both scholars and solution builders. So actually, it's really looking at the future, shaping the future with integrity, with intention, and very importantly, with imagination. So it will take a lot of imagination, creativity, and integrity, and of course, intention, for us to really shape the future of the university. So University of the Future is not a fixed model. It is a mindset. It is a paradigm. It is not just about surviving disruption, but shaping educational futures anchored on social good, learner empowerment, and of course, inclusivity. Higher education leadership has a critical role to play in an uncertain future. For my final remarks, the University of the Future is about leading a higher education institution in this uncertain world, disruptive world, embracing uncertainty, but revolutionizing disruptions with clarity of values and purpose. I think that is very, very important as we chart OUM the next 25 years of the university's existence. So I guess that's my last slide. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor Bandelaria, for the articulation of your vision of the University of the Future. I'm sure she has shared many thoughts which will reverberate amongst all of you irrespective of where you stand in the university standards, yeah? So we have just a bit of time before our lunch break. So if we can have several questions, if you have any from the floor. Can we have a show of hands? No? Do we have any questions? Right, well, if there isn't any at the moment, maybe if I, oh, there is one. Yes.
I'm sorry about this. You know, I'm impressed with your University of the Future, but it brought back my thoughts about this concept of the pluri-university. Pluri-university. Which means the paying attention to different perspectives that are taught, which is also linked to the movement to decolonize the university. So can you give some thoughts about our region, ASEAN region, for instance, where we are towards that step of, because I know that in Malaysia, we are talking about shutting down certain humanities programs, philosophy, music, art, and this runs counter to our future. So please comment.
Yeah. I guess Malaysia is not alone in that regard. I mean, in terms of really, shall we say, disregarding those things that should provide us with a unique identity as a people, as a nation. And I guess there's been so much discussion about this decolonizing education. I mean, even in the Philippines, in my university, there's so much discussion about that. And while we are gaining grounds in terms of really pushing for that agenda, we can also see that there are counter forces which push us back. It's pushing us back. So, like for instance, to also cite an example, there was a move in the recent years before the language Filipino is part of the curriculum at the tertiary level. Even history, our history was taught at the local language in Filipino. But recently, in the recent past, it was removed from the curriculum. The teaching of the language, the teaching of history, it was removed. And of course, there were clamors. So we're hoping that we could continue to gain ground in terms of advocating to bring those courses back, to again activate the discussion about the decolonization of education, and really putting more premium to those courses or subjects from the basic education to higher education that would strengthen our identity as a nation, as a region. We have the ASEAN region, so to speak, and I can say that we have the platform for us to push for that agenda. We just probably need to really work together, and the platform is there, the ASEAN platform, we have the national platforms for us, and I would like to believe that there are individuals, there are academics who continue to work on this aspect. So we continue to work on that. We continue to really advocate that those courses, those platforms which will strengthen our uniqueness, our cultural, respect for cultural diversity, I would say, should also be there. Then I guess the thing is for us to work together to push this agenda further, and for us not to be pushed back by other groups who may have, if I may use the term, who may have their hidden agenda. We don't know about that, but definitely there will be agendas counteracting whatever progress we have made towards that direction. So we need to work together, and we have the platform for us to work together. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We've run out of time for just before lunch, so we're going to have to wrap up. But before that, let us give Professor Bandelaria a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
I will now hand you over to the MC and before breaking for lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. David. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now adjourn for lunch. Delicious food awaits at CENDEF restaurant. Please bring along your tags, and we'll see you back here at 2 p.m. And just don't wander too far. Okay, the afternoon sessions are just as exciting. Please enjoy your lunch.